3, 2, 1, go. We're live. This is Retraice segment number 79 for Monday, December 12th, 2022 at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Retraice is about what's going on out there. The short answer to that is computer control. The long answer begins with what we're going to talk about today. Segment number 1, Re1. Re1 through 5, actually. Retraice is a constructive podcast. I don't know if I've ever made that explicit, but you can see we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, mainly in the form of the notes that would be sort of over and above your average podcaster. Thank you very much. Ooh, wait, I feel that pat on the back. I like it. Very good. But there's more to do than just the notes segment by segment. We have to have a transformer architecture. My understanding of a transformer architecture and attention or self-attention in artificial intelligence is that you sort of, instead of linear inputs one after another to the system, you can pivot and look at sort of a two-dimensional surface. That's the analogy you should think of, and that way you can assign importance to different inputs in a percept space instead of taking them one at a time and processing them linearly. But I don't know. I haven't really dug into it. But so we need attention. We need to be able to look at things from the side. You can't say Retraice is a constructive podcast, and in order to construct or to benefit from the construction, you should start at segment number 1. Nobody's going to start at segment number 1. Only the diehards. I love you people. I know you're out there. I would be one, I think, I hope. But I know most people are not the diehards. You need to pivot and see the whole thing. So we're going to do, as we've done a couple of times now for the recent artificial intelligence stuff, the technical stuff, we're going to do a recap. So today's recap is on strategic intelligence. It's this term I keep using. It means, in the short version of what it means when we use it here, is espionage, counter-espionage, and covert action. Spy stuff is the even shorter version of it. But there's a lot that goes into it. The way I'm thinking about it right now is that if our science, if in artificial intelligence, if our science is, or if our phenomenon is the intelligent agent or intelligent agents, then in strategic intelligence, our phenomenon is intelligence agents. Intelligence agents is the way you'd say it in English. So, spies. But then it's not spies. It's not just cloak and dagger stuff. Like, there's so much that goes into spying, and there's so much that's motivating it. It's just not. Anyway, it's a phenomenon. It should be treated as scientifically as we can, as outsiders and as rational people, empiricists. We'll get into that in a second. So that's what we're going to do. Let's dive right in. The basis of the discussion today will be the 5 sheets of notes, or 5 documents of notes for the first 5 segments, but it's all collected in the notes for this segment, Re79. As you can see here, just sort of like abstracts from each one. All the other thing I wanted to say. So Retraice is a constructive podcast. Our point of departure was the concept of intelligence, and that the first direction that seemed to go, gradient, slope, was strategic intelligence, and then we did artificial and then natural to sort of cover the 3 kinds of intelligence that we identified. But even before Retraice was a thing, when we were doing the precursors to this, and ever since it's been a thing, and now that it's taken the direction that it's taken, our gradient. We just finished gradient descent. If you don't know what a gradient is, go back and read some of maybe read the latest. Re78 was the one that summarizes the whole thing. The slope, I'd say ours is we want to do gradient ascent. But it's the direction to go has been toward technical artificial intelligence. That our gradient, we feel that. We've both felt that for the longest time, but we didn't know exactly how to get there or whether we were right about that feeling until, in the last maybe few weeks. It starts with intelligence as such, takes, paths through natural, artificial, and strategic, artificial and natural, and then kind of weaves around and eventually arrives at technical artificial, where we're at now. We got to see all that. That's what's happening. We're going to do some recaps. Okay. Oh, and also this is the December to Remember Math and Code event. We're not stopping that. We're just trying to pile this on top of it. We got a lot of things to do before January. Okay. This is the thing, the recaps and the December to Remember Math and Code event. All right. Shut up. Just go to work. Jeez. All right. So it starts with segment number 1. We sort of lay out the idea that there seem to be 3 different kinds of intelligence. And what is knowledge? Russell talks about the the power and the weaknesses of empiricism. It's the best system. It's like democracy. It's the worst system except for all the others. We talk about what Retraice is, just who we are. We're independent. We want to do a certain kind of work. What's going on out there is the question, and the work we do is the answer or the response. 3 kinds of intelligence: natural, what animals, humans, and groups of humans have, or what they do that makes them different from their surroundings. Artificial, whatever it is that makes certain machines and computers seem to know things and to act like they know things. And then strategic intelligence is what we're calling it. Espionage, counter-espionage, and covert action. And then we give some justification for that. On natural intelligence, we quote O'Shea on neurons and how the astonishing conclusion from comparative studies is that the evolution of our brains capable of such extraordinary feats did not require the evolution of superneurons. The basic cellular components of mental functions are pretty much the same in all animals, the humble and the human. Then we quote, was it von Neumann? Who is it? No, it's Churchlands, the Churchlands, that they're talking about the speed of processing in non-electronic, electronic brains as opposed to biological brains, and that the speed is just fantastically higher in electronic brains, and that intelligence clearly has an interesting future. In strategic intelligence, we quote Neil Ferguson on the Rothschilds and how they had networks upon networks upon networks of collaborators and information passers and getters, and then we talk about the hazards. So let's talk about the hazards. So when you get into the third kind, strategic intelligence, or if it's the third kind, the hazard that's most the hazards are just basically like the wacky stuff, like wild conspiracy theories, UFOs. What was the other thing I said here? ESP, the sort of stuff that ruins your reputation if you come across as like taking anything credulously when you should be a bit more or a lot more skeptical. So hopefully, we're not that. Like we're an organization. If we, a 2-person organization, we can take this stuff very seriously without collapsing into any craziness. But that's very important to remember. Is you're on very dangerous ground, and you'll encounter people who make mistakes, who go too far. You got to kind of be generous with those people. Is my experience, because it's hard to learn to think about such difficult things where it's so easy to just lose your standards and get excited about something. And then also another good reason to take this stuff head on is because it's a good test of your mettle, and it provides a lot of reminders about the limitations and what really makes for good thinking and bad thinking. What is knowledge? It's Russell put it, it's a matter of degree, and we cannot say what degree of doubtfulness makes it cease to be knowledge any more than we can say how much loss of hair makes a man bald. Evidence, what's evidence? It's just, again, a matter of degree, and maybe the idea of subjective probability is the most important idea. Fallacies, Hamblin, what are fallacies? They are argument, the expression of an argument that seems valid but is not. That's important to remember. What are the 2 major kinds of arguments, fallacies? Generalizing from incomplete information and overlooking alternatives. That's a really, really useful way. That's not usually how I say it to myself. It's usually like reasoning from too little information and failure to consider alternatives. I think he said it that way in a different edition, but that's not the edition that I use. So somehow the later edition stuck in my head. Secrets, likely and unlikely. Okay, we're getting into the strategic intelligence thing here. We just have to distinguish between secrets like the development of a spy plane or a nuclear weapon, which we know retrospectively were likely secrets. They were happening because we confirmed them later. And then there are unlikely secrets like underground bases with aliens in them, or crashed spaceship at Roswell or whatever, or ESP powers or whatever. It's important to distinguish between those two, and that there's nothing in particular that puts the unlikely secrets out of the realm of possibility. They just become very low in the space of probability. Possibility is not the same as probability. The price of information, we use this idea a lot. The idea from Jacques Vallée, that he's talking to this Major Murphy, which is a pseudonym in his Messengers of Deception, and I'm not going to look at the note, explain this directly. It's easier. If you're trying to study an intelligence that's trying to evade being studied or being detected, you can't do science on that. Science assumes sort of a passivity or a neutrality of nature. Nature can't be trying to avoid the work of a scientist because they don't take any measures to get it. We don't try to prevent or at least unless we're dealing with intelligent creatures. You do science on a lion, you have to know how to operate in the lion's domain and not get eaten, and also not just waste your time chasing something that's hiding from you, or waiting for something that knows how to hide from you. We have to think of unlikely secrets, like the possibility of otherworldly life, and the possibility, all things really that could slide over into the realm of strategic intelligence. We have to think of those as intelligence problems, not scientific problems. You can't study Russian espionage scientifically. You have to study it using intelligence methods, not scientific methods. I hope that makes sense, but I realize it's kind of it's a subtle distinction. Okay, and then intelligence and warfare is as old as Sun Tzu. Okay, we gotta go to Re2 here. Now, so the other thing is, and that's Re-segment 1. We pointed departure, 3 kinds of intelligence, started immediately focusing on strategic intelligence. Re2 through 5, we used Alan Dulles, the CIA director, a second CIA director, but almost a decade. He was like sort of the founding father of the CIA. We used his book, what is it called? The Craft of Intelligence, and then the chapter chapter 15, Security in a Free Society, as sort of like the organizing document for our examination of the phenomenon of strategic intelligence. So remember, just always think when we're working on strategic intelligence or talking about it, it's a phenomenon, the way that intelligence itself is, natural intelligence is, artificial intelligence is, strategic intelligence is a phenomenon as well. You can have opinions about it, you can have beliefs about it, you can read the history books and think you're getting the truth or that it's all lies, but it's a phenomenon, just like the other 2 kinds are a phenomenon. And so just in Re5, I finally put together sort of a recap of his chapter. So let me just, as our backbone to this, the basic problem, and this is just chapter 15 of Dulles' Craft of Intelligence. Free people want to be free to talk and know as much as they can, but too much of either can be dangerous to them. It's wasteful to spend money on keeping our secrets while also spending money on revealing them. And there are 4 major sub-problems: giveaways, careless leaks, contrived leaks, and betrayals. Our founding documents seem to make it impossible to fix this, but Dulles thinks we can improve the situation without breaking our founding documents. Have lots of frank discussions. Don't publicize superfluous military details. Don't make prosecution of espionage cases so difficult. Enact something like the British D-notice system, which is, I think, a thing that they use to silence journalists from publishing certain things. And improve our vetting of personnel. Make more things secret, because we can and do keep secrets, and be more careful with our overseas installations. And openness is an inherent weakness in our free societies for which we must compensate. Okay, so that's Dulles' chapter 15, and that's the backbone of our examinations from Re2 through Re5. So the first one, tell people, tell flows on Dulles, evidence, trust, is and ought, and capacities. It's hard to know what to believe about Alan Dulles. Oh yeah, I did a whole thing on like what about him? Was he this great patriot? Was he the organizer of the assassination of Kennedy? We'll never know for sure. A lot of people think both things. They're not incompatible, I don't think. Well, I think. Hang on a second. Okay, I think I just said that the conspiracy to assassinate Kennedy might have been patriotic. That's not what I meant. All I'm saying is, what am I saying? I don't know. Like, I've done a lot of reading on this guy. I read the whole spectrum on him, and he seems to be a real key figure in all this. I know a lot more about him than I should, and I just don't know if he had anything to do with the assassination, and if he did, were his motives the cynical Wall Street / deep state, whatever you want to call it, like the behind the scene industrialist actors trying to control the United States and prevent some great president from doing something great, or if it was really genuine concern about, in the context of the Cold War, what was going to happen to our country if this guy kept doing what he was doing. I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on that. I'm just going to tell you that it's tough. It's very tough as someone who is, and I'm just like you. Like, I like the idea that, I don't like the idea, but it's a more interesting story if he is this sort of, the more sensational stuff is true. I'm just like you. I want to, but I can't find that in evidence. I can't find that in the written record. I can't find its counter argument either. Okay, so here's the gist of chapter 15. We've already talked about that. The Craft of Intelligence is a book. He had help writing it almost certainly, but it's his ideas. Problems of evidence, things like text can be manipulated and they're hard to trust. Context is always missing from text and other documents. When he says we want this and we want that, who's the we? These are all problems of evidence. When we look at let's say his chapter or anything else in the realm of strategic intelligence, evidence of thoughts. We know what people write. We don't know what they say. We know what they write and say. We don't know what they think. Evidence of events are in the past, so we can't know of anything in the past. We can only know the echoes of it in the present if it did happen, and that's a much harder lift to be sure about the past. Evidence and ideas. So we have history, which is not knowable, but somehow bounded by probability, and we have ideas about how the world works, which can be tested. So like ideas are in the present. Ideas about how the world works we can test in the present, but things, beliefs about the past are in the past. I think I'm saying the same thing more or less twice there. And then beliefs. This is an important point. Whatever you believe and whatever other people believe about the past is what's important. It's what happened in the past is important to a point, but at a certain there's a certain threshold where it's not that it doesn't matter. It's just that it's not accessible, and the thing that is having an effect and is accessible is what people believe about the past. So we talked about the right, true, fit, and mixed model of the good. Right is morally, true is it faithful to reality. RTF, right, true, fit. Fit is whether it's true or morally right. Does it help you get what you want? And then mix is the mixture of the three. The true part is there's a whole school of thought that says that it doesn't even matter, that only right and fit matter, and blah blah blah. And anyway, I'm sort of groping at that here in the early days of Retraice. But that's a whole thing to think about. Okay, problems of trust, deception and error. We've talked a lot about deception and error on Retraice. Reputations can be attacked, and yet they're the basis for a lot of what we believe about the world. People's reputations, but they are totally vulnerable to really ridiculously easily attacked. Power and incentives. So basically, we should. The way I put it is, it seems our trust can only be placed with any shred of confidence in persons who are in a demonstrable position of power or control to know what they claim to know and have a significant incentive to share the knowledge with us or with anyone. And then on control, Weizenbaum has a lot of good things to say about insightful things. How do magical systems, blah, blah, blah. Then on control. The test of power, this is my favorite. The test of power is control. The test of absolute power is certain and absolute control. You got to link those two concepts in your mind, power and control. What else? Problems of is and ought. So, what's true versus what should we do? We've talked about that, and always distinguish between the two. Good guys and bad guys. There are problems of openness. Good guys give advantages away. Errors. Good guys can make mistakes and do harm, and then they look like bad guys, but they're still good guys. And then there's the problem of need, or the right, true, fit. Fit is the correspondence there. There are bloodthirsty subpopulations in every generation, and sometimes you might be glad you have them if you, say, get attacked by Russia and you have some some bloodthirsty guys on your Ukrainian army team who are really good at fighting back. That falls under the problems of is and ought. What's true versus what we would like to be the case. Violence, the monopoly on violence combines with the ever-present threat of violence that partially recognizes society. Fear and security are perhaps preludes to all these. Yeah, violence is something to identify in strategic intelligence. Kinds of war, you got psychological warfare, rumors, and then cyber warfare, probing defenses. I've got some quotes on what's happened with those things recently and not so recently. And then problems of our capacity. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Fitzgerald, 1936. Okay, that's Retraice segment 2. That was a long one. Okay, tell everyone the main points. We've identified problems of information, openness, the desire to tell people, careless leaks, and to be told, giveaways. Problems of trust, vulnerability to attacks, contrived leaks and betrayals. Problems of survival, preventing a group's own destruction by its enemies, those who would exploit information and trust problems, and by its own, those who would do anything to solve information and trust problems, e.g. Angleton. Yeah, he was kind of nuts in a good bad way. So that's the overview of the kinds of problems we talk about from here on. Problems of information, careless leaks, and giveaways. Careless leaks are things that, I put it better in the, let's see here. This is Re3. I'll just read it. Dullness on giveaways of technical details. So giveaways are of technical details in the military press, government hearings, investigations, inter-service rivalries, and journalism. Their motivations to give and get information. And, okay, careless leaks are not due to malice. That's the other thing to remember about careless leaks. Okay, lots of stuff on this. I'm going to just kind of skim over that. Okay, Re4. We're talking about so problems of information are unintended, and problems of trust are intentional. Again, I think I said it better in the abstract here. What did I just say? What are we on Re4? Yeah. So we're talking about whistleblowers, press manipulators, traitors and enemies, unintentional problems of information versus intentional problems of trust, subgroup hostility, whole group hostility, hardening and bulwarking against both of these, mice, money, ideology, compromise, and ego. Compromise and ego are the ways you can compromise someone or get someone in an intelligence contest. The havoc that all this stuff wreaks, and the particular problem of moles inside of intelligence organizations. That's what's in Re4. And then in Re5, we kind of put a bow on it and talk about why we're reading Dulles in the first place. We're hoping to find hints from inside. We're outsiders. We're hoping to find hints from the inside. Dulles was definitely an insider, and we're hoping to find hints. And I also sort of established the idea of so we're talking about survival, problems of survival. Survival of what? Life, leisure, and legislation. I mean, the capacity to breathe and think and pursue satisfaction. That's life. Leisure, time for doing things unrelated to fending off death. I don't know if you realize how much of that you have until you lose it. And then legislation, a symbol of representative government more broadly, the empire of laws and not men. So we don't want to, those are the three things that seemed most important when I looked at this. And then I talked about solutions to some of these problems, which I won't go into here, and the recap of Dulles 15. Okay, so that is strategic intelligence, Re1 through 5. All the references. So you saw I put the abstracts all into the Re79 notes that'll come out with this segment. References to all these notes will be in that document, and you can always get to them at notes.retraice.com. And that's it. All right. This has been Retraice segment 79. I can't talk today. Same time tomorrow, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Might do another double header tomorrow, maybe start at 10 p.m. We'll see. But anyway, signing off.